Massive GM report as Lance Newmark is reportedly out of the GM search, while The Athletic reports that Darren Mougey or Trey Brown will be the next GM of the New York Jets. And we have a Germaine Johnson injury update for you guys. So what's up, guys? I'm Matt Long. Welcome to Jets Digest. Before we hop into the video, if you're not subscribed, please, only 20.2% of viewers watching this video are subscribed. If you're not subscribed, please just hit the subscribe button. Takes a second, helps out me and Chris a ton. But hopping into this video, Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic says there's a sense that the Jets will make a decision on who will be the GM as soon as today, and that expectation is that it will be Darren Mougey or Trey Brown, as Mougey and Brown were both interviewed yesterday. This news is dropping. If you can see it, I know it's a little bit small, 8:04 a.m., January 24th. So that is this Friday morning that this news is dropping. Expect our GM decision to be made today. The number one thing that you guys may notice from this tweet is Lance Newmark, the assistant GM of the Washington Commanders, is not on this list. We talked about how when he got that second interview, but was not signed the day of or the day after, we said it was more likely that he was not going to be the GM, because if they were blown away by his interview, they would have signed him right there. Of course, this is better for you Darren Mougey or Trey Brown fans. Not so good if you're looking for Newmark to be the GM. Talking about, I'm going to go through again the history of these guys and who they are and what their qualifications are to be the GM. We're going to start with Darren Mougey. He is currently the Broncos assistant GM. He has been a Broncos scouting intern since the year 2012 and worked his way up through that franchise. He has been with only the Denver Broncos on his front office NFL career. He was part of the group that found Bo Nix, the franchise quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Of course, the New York Jets in this upcoming draft or the next upcoming in the 2026 NFL draft will be looking for their starting quarterback as well. So a guy who's already has experience finding the franchise quarterback, that would be very exciting if the New York Jets could get a guy like a Darren Mougey who has experience finding the guy. Of course, it's important to find the quarterback who meshes with your offensive play caller, your offensive coordinator, and your entire offense as a whole, and that's definitely what Mougey found in Denver. But we're going to have to see who the offensive coordinator is for the New York Jets before we can identify the correct prospect who is going to be able to be that perfect connection for our offense. Moving on over to Trey Brown, currently the Bengals senior personnel executive. He started his NFL scouting career in the front office of the New England Patriots in 2010 as a scouting assistant. He then moved on to the Eagles organization, scouting guys for them throughout the early 2010s. He also has experience in the front office of the Alliance of American Football and the XFL. So there's a guy who's been around the block. He has seen a lot of different organizations, a lot of different franchises, even seen different leagues. So Woody Johnson is probably not going to be able to throw something at this guy that he has not seen before. We know Woody Johnson is capable of the unthinkable, however, so he will probably be able to throw something that Trey Brown has not seen before. So the scary thing about Trey Brown, yes, the Bengals have experienced a turnaround in the recent years. Of course, started by Joe Burrow, all-star quarterback, all-world, all whatever you want to give him. The scary thing is that first-round pick history for the Cincinnati Bengals while Trey Brown has held that senior personnel executive position. He, like I said, joined the Bengals in this role in 2022, and in 2022, they drafted Daxton Hill in the first round. A lot of people watching this video probably don't know who Daxton Hill is. He was a defensive back out of the University of Michigan. Does he play safety or corner? They need both, and I don't know. I don't know what position he plays, which is a really bad thing, because I can tell you all the wide receivers that have been drafted in the last 3 years in the 7th round and what school they went from, and probably their college stats too. So if I can't tell you something about your first-round pick, that means you made a mistake. Going on to 2023, where he selected Myles Murphy out of Clemson at 28 overall. He was a developmental prospect, but he has 3 career sacks over 2 seasons. Again, that's another bust in the NFL. That year, they also found Chase Brown. But like I said in my other video, there are 4th-round successful running backs in every single draft. Chase Brown might have been a 5th rounder. There are successful running backs in day 3 of every single draft, so I'm not going to give him credit for that. And then in 2024, they drafted Armarius Mims out of Georgia. He is a very, very developmental guy, so I'm going to give him some more time on that. But he wasn't good this year. Just putting it bluntly, was not good this season. So that is disturbing to see a little bit. That's scary to see. out of a guy who could be your future GM being part of an organization that is whiffing on pick after pick after pick. However, talking about quarterbacks, the number one thing these guys are going to have to do when they come in is they need to decide whether Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback of the New York Jets going forwards. We know Darren Mougey has picked out his quarterback. Trey Brown inherited his quarterback. So there isn't, that could be a determining factor. If Mougey is the GM, he might be more likely to want to go out and draft his guy, just like he did with Bo Nix. And Trey Brown may be more likely to want to stick with Aaron Rodgers to do what he did in Cincinnati, which is where he just inherited a really good quarterback. Aaron Rodgers has been a really good quarterback in the past. It's possible that with the right offensive coordinator, he can get back to being an elite quarterback. And that's, of course, what New York Jets fans really want to see. And if you get Aaron Rodgers back, him and Davante Adams will be a package deal. Davante Adams has said that that's not set in stone that they're a package deal, but he's just being a consummate professional, which he always is in the media. If you pay attention to his interviews, his media hours, he's always really, really, really good at handling the media. He always knows the right thing to say, always professional. So that's good for handling the media. But when you're looking at it, you have to be able to read through the lines and understand what he's saying. And what he's saying is a whole lot of nothing. When he says they're not a package deal, they're a package deal. He keeps forcing his way to quarterbacks that he's familiar with Derek Carr on the Raiders and then Aaron Rodgers on the Packers. He's going to do it again. This is what he does. He has the reputation for doing this. The history is backing that up. They're going to be a package deal. Hopping into this Jermaine Johnson update that I have for you guys. He tweeted out yesterday night, 18 weeks out, and Achilles tension symmetry is exact. God is great. We're almost back and as explosive as ever. Jermaine Johnson, first round pick in 2022 with Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. Gets kind of forgotten a little bit with him not being as good as the other players that we drafted that year. And also the injury this year. But Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State, I don't need to introduce him to Jets fans. He could be a really good player for us. We need cheap edge rushing talent because that's too expensive in free agency. We don't have a ton of cap flexibility with Aaron Rodgers' monster contract. So we're going to need cheap pass rushing help off the edge. And Jermaine Johnson can do that exactly. Talking about what the tweet actually says, this tension symmetry, that's important because it shows that his injured Achilles is coming to be just as strong as his uninjured Achilles. And that obviously shows correct recovery time because we just saw Deshaun Watson from the Cleveland Browns. He re-ruptured his Achilles. That was also a possibility for Jermaine Johnson, which makes this, the fact that didn't happen, makes this a very positive update for the New York Jets. If you're familiar, I know Jets fans are probably way too familiar with the Green Bay Packers organization. They have a wide receiver named Christian Watson. Every single year he goes down with quad injuries. I think this year was the ACL, but he's always dealing with quad injuries. And going into this season, they tested his legs and said his legs, the muscle makeup was different, of the level of power was different from his left leg to his right leg. So he needed to correct that, and that was leading to more injuries. Jermaine Johnson, the fact that the tension, the symmetry is perfect now, that shows that he's not going to have an injury like that. His legs are going to be just as strong. One is going to be just as strong as the other, which is paramount when you are exploding off the snap, jumping off the line of scrimmage. He's got to make sure he is being safe. We saw Jalen Phillips from the Miami Dolphins. He had an injury that we're worried about Jermaine Johnson having, where Black Friday, the Jets 2 years ago, all he did was just pushed off. He pushed off the turf and his Achilles popped. Jermaine Johnson, if his legs are symmetrical and back to being as strong as they were, he is going to be significantly less likely to have an injury such as that one. And that's important because we need all of our edge rushers healthy. Frankly, we don't have enough of them. They say you can never have enough pass rushing in the NFL, and that certainly rings true for the New York Jets. Will McDonald is coming on very, very strong, looking like someone who could be a maybe even 15-sack guy next year. The problem is he doesn't set the edge strongly enough in the run game. Jermaine Johnson is someone who isn't as developed pass rush-wise. He's a power rusher instead of the finesse rusher that Will Johnson is. Will Johnson is what I called him. Obviously, Will McDonald is what I meant to call him. Think about the NFL draft. My bad on that one. Of course, Jermaine Johnson, power rusher. He's going to hear the snap, get his hands on the guy in front of him and push off of the ground. He has to be able to trust his legs. He's got to make sure he's not getting another injury. So we got to make sure that it's just good to see our guy back. I'm very excited to see him. I think this guy can do great things should he get the right scheme around him and should he get fully healthy. That's what I got for you guys today. If you enjoyed the video, please hit a like, hit the subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, go Jets.